Aura.
Said that she was in the same kind of.
Right. So basically, to bluntly put it, I was part of the mess. Mess is not the mess that you you're thinking about. Everything that was happening in the classroom, I was there. Of course, there are things that I could not participate in because that was restricted. The teacher would, for example, if she needed to use the bathroom, she would ask me to step in, you know, and I would be wherever there was some kind of action going on, I would be there. I tried to capture as much as I can what was happening, and in the classroom. Oh wow! Did I tell you to videotape this? No, I didn't.
I'm videotaping.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
So anyway, so I was a passive observer. That means I was actively involved in the classroom activities. You know, whatever was happening, I was trying to capture what was going on. The teachers, like I said, would ask me to even co-teach some lessons, and I sort of stepped back because I felt like it wasn't really part of my job to do it. Because as a researcher, yes, it's good to be involved, but you don't want to be too involved. Because if I'm co-teaching, there are things that I may not be able to see. But if I step back, I will be better able to see what's happening. You see? So I did some of that. So I interviewed Ron several times. I interviewed his mom only twice. The teachers, I did many interviews with them, formal and informal interviews. I would interview her before class, the teachers before class and after class. Sometimes I would have lunch with them. If you want to be an ethnographer, and that was an ethnography study, I was there. I tried to be as involved as possible. You know, they would have some kind of events at the school, and I would be there. You know, and I would eat with the teacher in the cafeteria. I would sit with the student in the cafeteria. I was part of the family, so to speak, to capture what was going on.
One more question, sir.
Yes.
Why Juan's mother and not Juan's mother and father?
I'm going to tell you in a moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
good enough.
So I videotaped the classroom. I wanted to capture students interaction, teacher-student interaction. So I did that. I also used audio. I tape recorded. I videotaped, and of course I transcribed them for analysis. And I collected writing samples of Juan from the time he started with school there until the research was over. Remember, when I left, he was still a student there. So now, let me respond to your question. Juan's mom was basically a single mom. She came here, she was a lawyer in her native land, the Dominican Republic. She came here as an immigrant. Of course, she had to do the type of work that perhaps she would not be doing in her native land because of the English language barrier. And the father would come to visit, but he would not stay. So I focused on the mother because she was the one who was physically available. I didn't get to meet the father. But I met her many times. And in fact, she was taking ESL classes in the afternoon at the same middle school. Because the middle school offered ESL to adult parents. The idea was to have the parents read of English so that they could help the children with their homework. I thought that was fascinating. So I observed her, Ron's mom, in her ESL class. And the teacher who taught Ron in the morning was Ron's mom, teacher in the afternoon. And that way they were able to build a very strong relationship. I'm very what's the word? Excited about this teacher. I think it was really rich, you know. It was very interesting to see how Ron's mom would ask the teacher about Ron, right? And the teachers were very impressed with Ron's mom because she always wanted to know what was going on with Ron's learning in school. She was the most involved friend I've ever seen, literally. So now what do you do when you have a set of data composed of field notes, you know, interviews? I did not do focus group, okay? I only do individual interviews. I began with 4, like I said, I interviewed them individually. And and I continue interviewing Ron throughout the study. I would do short interviews, like sometimes longer than others, depending on the context, on the day. So now, how did I make sense of the data? Well, one thing you need to think about when you're doing research, your field notes may not help you respond your research questions, or fully respond, your research questions. You may need to use your interviews to see where's the gap, So I look at all the data and see, okay, how am I going to make sense of it? So I do recursive analysis, going back and forth, looking at all the data to see if they make sense. What was the gap? If the data would help me in some of my research questions. So that's what I did. So I tried to triangulate the data to see if there was any consistency or not. Okay. So I used Borgen and Bilken's comparative method to analyze one essays and examine his role over time. So basically, I look at writing that he produced when he first got to the school to those that he was able to produce towards the end of the study to see if he made progress over time or not. So this was the first essay, I said essay, not really essay, text that he produced in Miss Vanessa's class. Okay, so Miss Vanessa provided a prompt to Ron and his classmates. I said Ron, I'm not referring to all the classmates, but it was a prompt that she provided to all her students. And that was the question: should or shouldn't be entitled to the same education? Why? Write a paragraph. Why or why? Now, let me give you some kind of background information about this. The teacher was trying to mimic the MCAS test. MCAS is standardized test. So what she would do, she would use previous MCAS test, okay, and come up with some kind of writing activities that would have the student do well, eventually do well on the test. So she would see how, the questions were asked in the test, and she would try to emulate that. Does that make sense? So that was the idea. Basically, she was teaching to the test, so to speak. So she would use this type of question to generate some writing in the students. So this is the prompt that she provided to the students. And Ron was learning English at the time. English was very limited, and he attempted to answer the question. But one of the fascinating things about this is that he surely understood the question, despite the fact that he was challenged. He was linguistically challenged. He could not really elaborate, the question, but he attempted to answer it. And the response was, first, should or shouldn't be entitled to the same for education. He sort of repeated the question, which says a lot about academic writing. When you are being asked a question, you need to show that you understand the question, and he actually showed that you understand it. And then he attempted to answer the question by saying yes, because to do a great work done with children is a good job. Of course, it may not make sense to you because of the language barrier. But given the insider, given that I was a passive observer, I'm able to connect this writing to what was happening in the classroom. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me because I was involved. I saw the writing. I saw, the whole process. So that was the first text he produced. Then, 3 months later, this is what one was able to produce, which did go over time. So again, the teacher provided a prompt. Do you think Casey was arrogant during this game? Give you reasons why you think he was arrogant or not. Now let me give some type of background about Casey. It's a short text that they had to read and respond to the text, okay, with a short essay. So the idea was the teacher asked a question about the main character in the story, which is Casey, and asked the student to sort of respond to that question. And Ron, who basically within 3 months was able to improve his writing with the help of his teachers and his mother, who remember, she was highly educated in her native language. She was a lawyer, even though the English language was a barrier for her temporarily, but she was able to help her run. And I will explain a bit more what I meant by that. So basically the answer was like, I think Casey was arrogant during his game. Here are my 3 reasons. But let me say something. That did not come out of the group. the teacher sort of gives them a format to follow, writing formats. First, you see this, second, third, the transitions, right? So first, he didn't care about the game. He showed off and did not pay attention to the ball. So one of the things that the teachers did, and of course I was there, whenever you make a statement, you need to substantiate it with examples from the reading itself. You cannot, make it up. And you could see that Ron tried to do that. First of all, he didn't care about the game. He came to bat and did nothing. To the first bat, he said, "That my stop." Second of all, he thought he was the most valuable player. There was pride in his kisses and a smile in his face. And every time he made a statement, he would pull out something from the text to substantiate it. To me, that was very sophisticated for a student who was learning the English language. And finally, he didn't pay attention to the ball. He didn't notice when the pitcher threw the ball. So he explained every single thing that he makes. He pulls out something from the reading to illustrate it. I thought that was amazing. Then 6 months later, that's what Ron was able to produce. You could see that the writing got better over time. Again, the teacher provided prompt. We are facing global warming. Write one of two elaborate paragraphs describing what will happen. And then that was Ron's response. If we're going to global warming, again, the text that they had to read was about global warming. And they read it in both languages, Spanish and English. If we're going to global warming, it will get hot. The North and South Pole will melt and it will get hot. First, it will get hot because the temperature will go up and the humidity will go up with the heat. The rivers will dry up. Secondly, the North and South Pole will melt and the oceans will rise. The penguins, and it goes on and on and on and on. Again, he was able to provide examples to substantiate some of the claims that he was making. And of course, he didn't get there on his own. He got help from the teachers all along, in the classroom. And I saw the teachers going around and help them, and she had them work in groups. I saw the whole process. So that was for over the course of a year. That's what he was able to do. Some of the findings are the following. I wanted to know what really helped Ron to succeed at the middle school to a point where he was recognized as an achiever. Well, in one of the interviews that I had with Ron, he stated, and I quote, like my mother would say, my math teacher, Miss Carvin, would say, take college now. And when I hear that, I'm always thinking about that. When I hear that take college now, makes me think what I'm doing now, so I don't need to be embarrassed in the future. So I can be proud of myself when I was a child. When I look back, I'm gonna be like, oh, all the good things I did. So this is an excerpt that I got from one of the interviews. Okay? And these are some of other findings. So I wanted to know to what extent his mother helped him. And this is what he had to say about his mom. She always tells me, did you do your homework? She always knows if I'm lying or not. She's like, do your homework. Go do your homework. I always do, If she doesn't think so, she says, bring me the book back. She checks everything if I did it, So again, those are some of the decisions that she made when I was asking about his mother's support. Then, of course, like I said, I wanted to sort of contrast that. I wanted to know from the teacher's standpoint how Ron was doing, how he was able to achieve in school. And that's one of the statements that one of his teachers made. She said, Ron did it all on his own. Of course, that's not true. When she said he did it on his own, let me explain what he meant by that, given that I was, an insider, I was a passive observer. Ron was so driven, was self-motivated. Out of the four students I studied with, he was the most driven student I've ever had a chance to work with, right? And part of it is that he wanted to please his mom. His mom had high expectations of him, and he lived by those expectations. And the teacher said, Ron did it all on his own. He's motivated. He wants to succeed. He wants to